New Jersey's Mayor Cory Booker was returning, Newark, New Jersey's mayor, was returning home last week and noticed that his neighbor's house was on fire. He and his 2 security guards knocked on the door, evacuated the residents from the lower floor, went upstairs, got one person there, but that person told him that his daughter was on the 3rd floor. So they rushed up the stairs, and when they got to the 3rd floor, it was totally engulfed in flames, and his security guards would not let him go in until he turned and gave them a direct order that they release him. And he ran literally into the flames, found the woman alive, put her on his shoulders, and carried her out with embers falling on both of them, with Booker sustaining a pretty bad burn on his hand, and she got some on her back, but they got out alive. Now, you know, most folks run from a fire, but it takes a person with the heart of a lion to run into a fire. And while I don't want to take anything away from Booker's heroic and dangerous rescue, for a politician, that's just about a Hollywood setup, isn't it? I mean, there might have been somebody thinking, I'm going to vote for whoever else. Shut up. He ran into a burning building. I mean, this guy is going to win re-election. There is no way to lose now. I think that I would run into a burning building to save someone, but I don't know that I would. I think I would. Standing here, this building isn't on fire. I think I would. I like to think that I'm that person, but I don't know. How many of us have ever seen a building engulfed in flames before the fire professionals got there? Booker is a hero, though this daring rescue has put him in a position of being able to say to the media, "Oh, shucks, 'tweren't nothing no decent person wouldn't have done." I mean, you know, that Annie kind of line that, you know, he's able to just kind of kick his instep and say, you know, it was nothing. Well, it was huge, obviously, but it puts him in a great spot. I don't know if it affects young women as much as it does little boys, but we are reared on stories of heroism, and we all dream that one day we'll be in a position to be the hero, that we get to rescue the damsel from distress, or to disarm the bomb, or to charge into a burning building, or even to capture the mad scientist that's about to blow up the world. We want to be that guy. We imagine ourselves as Spider-Man or Superman, or as James Bond or Matt Dillon, sometimes even Mighty Mouse would do. But when it comes right down to it, we live most of our lives kind of like we were either Gomer Pyle or Gilligan. We just don't get a lot of opportunities to be that guy. Not that we would wish for more burning buildings or mad scientists, but we do wish that we could be in the right place at the right time. To be able to say with Cory Booker, "Oh, shucks, it wasn't nothing. Anybody would have done it." 500 years ago, a Spanish knight was seriously injured while fighting very valiantly in the Battle of Pamplona. They were greatly outnumbered by the French, and yet Ignatius was so impressive in battle. He went ahead and fought valiantly that cannonball broke his leg, and when the French found him, they took him back to his own castle to recover. They didn't take him to prison, or they didn't kill him. They just thought, you know, this guy's a real hero. So they took him back to his own castle to recover. And he, you know, was a guy that had wanted to make a name for himself, and he had to be patient with the healing process. And in fact, his leg was not healing straight, so he made the doctors break it again and reset it, because the style in those days was to wear tall boots with a kind of hose, and he wanted his leg to look right at the balls. I mean, it was pretty vain. But he asked to be given a couple of romantic novels to help him pass the time, and as it happened, there weren't any. In fact, in those days when the printing press was still kind of a new invention, they only had 2 books in the castle. One was the Lives of the Saints, and the other was the Bible. So he pored over these texts, and he wasn't short on ego. So he's reading these stories about the lives of the saints, and Ignatius of Loyola keeps saying to himself, "I could do that. I could be that. I could do that." He's the only person I know of in history who actually made it his personal goal to be declared a saint. The bad news is, of course, the only way for the Catholic Church to name someone a saint is they have to be dead. So it's kind of like getting a stamp. You can't have an image on a stamp until you've been dead for quite a while. Since he was long dead when it happened, I don't really know if he derived any satisfaction from his success, but about 60 years after Ignatius of Loyola was dead, Pope Gregory XV declared him to have been a saint. In the days of Ignatius, those books that were collections of the lives of the saints were very popular devotional books, and you can still find some of them around the homes of pious Catholics. And in fact, in the early 19th century, there was a Protestant version. James Fox wrote the Book of the Martyrs in order for Protestants to have some great stories of heroes to read about. And in fact, in Fox's Book of the Martyrs, a lot of the people that were killed were Protestant evangelists that were killed by the Catholic Church. So, there was a little competition going on there. But in a spirit of ecumenism, I've got copies of both. But all kidding aside, it frosted Ignatius about those collections of the lives of the saints that his fellow Catholics seemed content to read them and considered themselves to be pious because they could recite what these saints of old had done in the service of God's kingdom. Ignatius thought the stories shouldn't be something that you simply read and memorized to honor other people, but they should inspire you to go out and do the same thing. That you should run into a burning building now again, save some babies, disarm some bombs, capture a mad scientist. Don't just sit in your room watching Spider-Man or reading comic books. Get out there and do it. I've often thought of this when I've attended our local Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday observances. We march down back streets. We always schedule the march to go down roads that don't have any traffic because we wouldn't want to bother anyone. We meet in an auditorium and we listen to nervous middle school students reading their essays about Martin Luther King. We give awards to civic groups that have organized volunteers to pick up litter by the highway, and we encourage everyone to get involved. I made myself very unpopular at one of the planning meetings of the NAACP when I pointed out to the room, you folks do remember that they shot Martin Luther King for what he said and did. No one gets shot for writing essays. No one gets shot for picking up litter by the road. No one creates a tension in society by marching down an otherwise unused street. I thought it was an important historical reminder and that we needed to kind of ratchet up our celebration. So you can imagine my surprise when I got an email from the president of the NAACP telling me that it was no longer necessary for me to plan to attend the planning meetings. I have a real gift for making friends, you understand, though I don't think that's what the committee chairman called it. We have posters around our building with quotes from Dorothy Day, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Rosa Parks. We've got a big poster of that unnamed man. We don't know who he was, just a brave young man that stood in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square in China with his grocery bags. He'd just been out shopping. He hadn't planned a bus boycott. He hadn't planned to be a part of a protest, but he saw what was going on, and he just took his grocery bags and stood in front of a tank and made it stop. Maybe Ignatius founded the Jesuit order so that he could become famous, so that he could become a saint. But the martyrs and saints whose images hang on the walls of our church, they weren't trying to be immortalized under glass in a church hallway. Please don't congratulate yourself simply because you're attending a church that has pictures of social justice heroes and martyrs on the walls. Don't think that you've been liberated from meaningless, symbolic religion just because you have some progressive thoughts in your head. As St. John wrote in this text that we heard read, don't think that your faith rests between your ears. If you've got resources and you know someone in need and you're not doing something about it, you're really not on the team. Being an opinionated spectator is not a part of the practice of this faith. Now, we here have put some distance, geographically and ideologically, between ourselves and our religious cousins who think that the kingdom is all up in heaven after you die, in the sky by and by. But come on, the kingdom isn't just between your ears either. I'm glad that we've gotten past the racial prejudices that were a part of our childhood. I'm glad that there is no lingering prejudice in this church against persons of different sexual orientations or classes. But surely you don't think the battle is over. You don't think racism is gone. You don't think that the prejudice against gays and lesbians is part of American history. The most famous prayer of our tradition tells us that Jesus taught us to pray for the will of God to be done on earth as it is in heaven. On earth, not just in heaven, and not just between your ears. The will of God needs to be done in the industrial parks of Springfield. It needs to be done at City Hall. It needs to be done on Commercial Street. Alexander Campbell said that if you will get down on your knees and pray for something that you will not then stand up and go to work for and sacrifice for, that you're really just disappointing yourself and insulting God. The thing that keeps most of us from being saints, from becoming heroes, is not that there aren't enough damsels in distress, not enough burning buildings for us to muster our courage for a single moment, for a sudden burst of death-defying service. The problem is that real saints and heroes are doing things that require a little bit of sacrifice day in and day out. Disciplined service every day. If being skinny, if you could be skinny by just foregoing food for a day, if I could just, I'm tired of being overweight, I'm just going to quit eating today, and tomorrow I'm going to be skinny. I can tell you, I would be so skinny I'd have to jump around in the shower to get wet. But the truth is that really being healthy is a matter of making a good decision moment by moment by moment. And tomorrow getting up and doing the same thing. Real sainthood is the same thing. Being a hero is not a matter of just running into a burning building one evening on your way home from work. It's about that decision you make every day. It's the decision that you're going to open your own wallet, go to the grocery store and buy $200 worth of food, and then stand up in your kitchen for the next 8 hours cooking it to get up the next morning and deliver it to homeless friends at Bill's place. It's walking down the street and asking people to sign petitions so that we can close down these predatory lenders who are sucking the resources out of the desperately poor and having people tell you no, slam the door in your face. It's not just that you aren't prejudiced anymore. It's that you are unwilling to listen to gossip at your office when someone is going to talk about someone that they think is gay or whose life is under some kind of puritanical scrutiny. It's when you take the risk and you hire someone who has a criminal record or who is just out of drug or alcohol treatment. Because it's not enough to wish that those people are warm and well-fed. We have to be a part of the solution. I'm going to say that you don't know what it is to pray that you have your daily bread until you have the experience at least once of giving all your bread away and then having to pray for your next loaf. The previous form of the 8 points of progressive Christianity that we print on our front cover of our bulletin, there's a group of people that get together and edit that every once in a while. And the version that existed 3 years ago, the 8th point was that we acknowledge that being a follower of Jesus is costly. It was recently edited to be something somewhat less, committed to a path of lifelong learning, compassion, and selfless love. I like the older version better because I think that if your faith doesn't cost you something, that maybe it's also not worth anything. Amen.
You've been watching a progressive Christian video from the Community Christian Church of Springfield, Missouri. We encourage our viewers to donate to our efforts in feeding the homeless and hungry of our community. Write to us at reverenddray@aol.com for more information.